Pleased to present Austin Faith Dialogue, brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries. In the weeks ahead, you will see these and other programs by various denominations.
Austin Faith Dialogue, a public affairs series at the crossroads of religion and life. Austin Faith Dialogue highlights the interaction of the religious community with the social and cultural issues in the area in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KTBC TV. Join us now for this week's edition of Austin Faith Dialogue.
Too many teenagers today drop out of high school as a solution to their problems. Problems like pregnancy and drug use, low self-esteem, and a lack of family support. How do we, as a community, reach out to these youth at risk? What measures are in place to prevent dropout before it takes place? Hello, I'm Valerie Bridgman Davis, co-pastor of Bonafo Community Church, and your host for this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue. Today, we will explore problems and solutions in Austin's at-risk youth community. Joining us today are Jackie Lytle of the Teenage Parent Council of Austin and Don Loving, Executive Director of Communities in Schools. Welcome to you both. I'm glad to have you here. I'm glad that we've already talked a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. And it's just good to be able to have somebody from the community who knows what's happening.
Thank you.
Welcome to you both.
Thanks.
We're going to start with you, Jackie, and let you just kind of tell us what the Teenage Parent Council is and how it functions.
We're a nonprofit agency that's been working in Austin since 1970. In fact, we celebrated our second decade and 20th anniversary in October of 1990. But the council has been devoted during that time to issues of adolescent pregnancy. Primarily during the first 15 years, the council worked with a very small staff, very small budget, to heighten awareness about adolescent pregnancy issues here in Austin and Travis County. In the last 5 years of the decade, we worked to build direct services for teens who are pregnant and parenting, and primarily services that addressed keeping teens who are pregnant and parenting in school.
And Don, can you tell us a little bit about Communities in School?
Sure. Like the Teenage Parent Council, we're a private nonprofit agency here in Austin, and we are quite young compared to Teen Parent Council. We've been in operation since 1986. The Communities in Schools program is rather unique in that we are actually housed in the Austin Independent School District campuses. We're currently on 10 campuses and have staff located on each of those 10 campuses. And they range from elementary schools through high schools, as well as some of the district-wide programs that draw kids from all over the district. Our goal is real simple, is to work with young people to help them stay in school so that they can finish high school, because without that high school education, they have many strikes against them that is real clear from our statistics and how we operate. So it is a unique relationship with Austin Independent School District in that we're not part of the district and that we're not employees, but we're there in partnership with them.
Well, we can pretty much tell from the name of Jackie's group that you are reaching out to young girls who are pregnant and trying to convince them to stay in school. But what other kinds of youth are at risk of dropping out?
Maybe I can start there. Actually, we see the whole campus as being at risk or potentially at risk. But there are a number of indicators or characteristics that a young person has that makes him or her at risk of dropping out or in an at-risk situation that could lead them to dropping out. Poverty, I would say, is one of the #1 causative factors, and it becomes intergenerational. As well as just the fact of not having enough money, with the parents being underemployed or unemployed in so many cases, and that produces stresses on the family that that young person brings to school with them. The other characteristics are having a family member who has dropped out of school. That's a high indicator. Once they start dropping behind in school, being below grade level in school is another high indicator. So school people, school teachers, principals, the counselors, the nurses, they can readily identify an at-risk young person and then refer them to us. And then we attempt to work with that young person in conjunction with the school officials to do whatever is necessary to keep them in school. And sometimes it's as simple as getting a kid an alarm clock. I mean, I want to trivialize that but sometimes a kid whose parents are working, they can't get themselves up by themselves. So if we find that's a problem, then we'll give them a alarm clock. If we only wish all of the difficulties were that simple and simplistic, but it is sometimes as simple as that. But unless someone identifies what the problem is, then the solution cannot be applied.
Jackie, would you like to say more about that? I know we were talking earlier, you were saying about the age of some of the young girls that you see.
First, I'd like to say that not only are we looking at young women dropping out of school because of pregnancy and parenting, we're looking at young men also. Sure. In fact, not too far in the recent past, the Austin Independent School District did a study of 100 youth who had dropped out of school and found that at least a third of those had dropped out because of pregnancy and parenting concerns. And of that third, at least 7% of those were young men. And so we need to consider the problems that teen fathers face also. And
could you say what some of those
Well,
are?
Some of those are simply establishing the fact that they are a teen father and becoming a part of that family that has been begun in a lot of different ways. Teen fathers are looked at as perhaps the absent kind of person in the picture, and many times that's not by their own choice. Many times they are forced out of the picture for various reasons, and a lot of research shows that teen fathers do indeed feel responsible for the children that they father, and that our programs should, and even my own program, should address this issue and bring more teen fathers in for direct services, because those that we do serve, we find, are as needy as teen mothers. They are in danger of dropping out of school. They have learning problems. They come from dysfunctional families. And then, as Don mentioned, the bottom line is poverty. The biggest percent of our teen parents, for them, that is the variable that not necessarily triggered the pregnancy, but caused complications that resulted in the pregnancy for them. Our teen parents are like any other student at risk. And in fact, recently I heard a presentation by a demographer out of Washington, and his presentation was entitled "The Same Client," and he was addressing service providers who work with teen parents. But he said, if you check with service providers who are serving teens who have alcohol and drug problems, who have learning problems, who are in poverty, you will see that you're serving the same client. And I know Don and I frequently interact at a staff level, and our staff interact with teens and children who come from the same families, and they are indeed the same client. Teen mothers have special kinds of support needs, and I should say teen mothers and fathers, and those support needs are often very expensive and are at a premium in our community as well as other communities across the country. And I'm speaking mainly of daycare, transportation. It's just not as easy to get on a bus and go to school. If you are a teen parent, carrying along all of the things that your child needs for the day in daycare, as well as your books and all the things that you will need. So there are some programs that address teen parents' needs are not cheap. They are expensive. But we need to recognize that as a community, unless we make this investment up front, we're going to be spending lots more dollars in the next decade on the children of these teen parents who don't have a good start.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that teen parents need is daycare. You mentioned that. Do either one of your programs address the daycare concerns of teen parents, for instance?
We both do, in the sense of providing support. And Don's program and my program also has special set-asides for money for teen parents for daycare in certain circumstances if they're eligible.
Woefully inadequate.
Right.
It's just always scrabbling around for funds and resources. It's ironic that even if we had the resources in our community, there wouldn't be enough daycare. But we don't have enough of either. So
we're talking about teen parents. You said same client. Don, you will probably have to address this because obviously there are other at-risk youth who are not teen parents.
Oh, yes.
Can you talk a little bit about those?
Oh, yes. It's what I do. The range of dropouts and potential dropouts really starts in elementary schools, and that's pretty shocking to a lot of people. But I think you have
How
to,
so?
you need to understand that the young person in elementary school, beginning in the first grade, can begin to be identified by the professionals in the school as being that potential dropout. There's a statement, I don't even know who it's attributed to, but it's real accurate, that the kids drop out in elementary school and they stop coming in secondary school. And it's so true because
what are the signs of that? I mean,
a lot of times kid comes to school hungry, they cannot pay attention, they begin to fail, and then with repeated failures, they begin to be held back, and once they begin to experience that level of failure, then once they get to that point where they can make certain decisions on their own, they will in fact drop out. And there's numerous cases that track that. Just a few statistics to bring this home to you is how serious this problem is in our community and in our nation. It's not just an Austin problem. It's something that is facing the country. And like I say, just a few statistics. In Texas, the dropout rates in the range of 33–34%. Austin is a little better than that, but still rather abominable. It's about 28%. When we're talking about minorities, it's even greater.
Wait a minute. A third of Texas youth drop out of high school.
And this is in the longitudinal studies that for every one kid that enters high school, for every 3 kids enter high school, one will drop out before they finish high school.
My goodness.
And that's the statistics today in Texas. Some parts of Texas is much worse, and along the valley it's much greater. The significance of that is rather shocking. Financially, the Texas Department of Commerce estimates that each dropout class over their, it means any year, over their lifetime will cost Texas $17 billion a year in lost revenue, lost taxes, welfare costs, free health costs, prison costs. 90% of the inmates have not graduated from high school. Just to bring this into real fine focus about what will happen eventually, because it's growing not just by inches, it's growing by leaps and bounds Remember, one of the characteristics of a dropout is that they had a parent that had dropped out. So every group of dropouts then will have other children, and once they start hitting the rough times, and they will economically and all of the other associated social and psychological problems, then the likelihood of that young person dropping out is tremendously increased. Now, that's the bad news. The good news...
Well, let's finish with the bad news, because I do want to hear the good news. I promise you.
Okay.
I want to hear the good news. I'm a good Christian in that respect. I want to hear the good news. There is also the problem along gender and race lines.
Correct.
We talked about that a little bit earlier when we were talking. Would you again say, for me, the concern you had about pregnancy among youth,
Right.
the young women?
Right. In Austin and Travis County, we are higher than the average in the state, well, for the state of Texas. And Texas itself is among the top 3 in the nation for the numbers of teens who become pregnant and parent. But in Austin and Travis County, we are higher than the state of Texas in the number and percentage of births to young teens. And when we say young, we're talking about 17 and under. Then when we look at the numbers of births among that particular population in Austin, Travis County, we see that almost half of those are to young Hispanic young women. And that is of great concern, because we know that that this is a group that we need to address in terms of services, not only to stay in school, but health services and all of the other social services that they may need in order to become successful, productive parents and members of our community. So that is a group that we really need to take a strong look at, find out what services are there. Are they using these services in our community? Are they indeed dropping out? We don't know enough about our dropouts in Austin and Travis County to say, indeed, are they dropping out of school? And is this because the services in our school do not address their particular needs? I would suspect that they're all related. But this is something that we really do need to address as a community.
And I'm sure that's true, that they are all related. And Don, when you say 90% of the men, women who are in prison are dropouts, I'm just struck by another stat, which is that overwhelmingly the men in prison are Black and Hispanic.
That's
correct.
correct.
Talk about that.
Well, again, to kind of finish up the statistical profile of the dropouts. In Austin, and the dropout rate amongst Hispanics is at 45%. Amongst blacks is in the neighborhood of 34%, and the remainder, which is a lot lower, are white, averaging out to about 28%. The gender breakdown for dropouts may be a little edge to the males, but it's pretty close. It's very, very close. Some of the reasons for that, is it's a real complex kind of issue, but the lack of cultural sensitivity or cultural relativity within the school environment, I think, and this is my opinion, contributes a great deal to that, as well as getting back to poverty being one of the underpinning reasons or factors that is common in all of these. Is the poverty rate is higher in the minority groups, in the Hispanic community and the Black community. So we pay particular focus to those populations and are in those schools where there are higher populations of the minority ratios.
What kinds of things are either of you doing that you can think of that addresses particularly that issue, the gender issue, the race issue, I guess?
One of the things that we do in measuring our program effectiveness is to take a look at who we are serving. And if 42% of the children who are born to teens each year are born to Hispanics, we look at, are we serving a large percentage, and at least that, and right now it's a little bit higher in our caseload. So to assure that our agency is not only taking those who come and are readily referred to us, but that we are actually reaching out to those populations, and they are appearing in our caseloads and in the work and services we offer.
We do that also. Another thing that we do is work very hard at making sure our staff represents the same racial and ethnic ratio as the client population we serve. And it's pretty close to that.
That's good.
I'd like to say something about numbers of dropouts. Sometimes it's helpful to get a picture of what this problem is by talking about how many people or how many children are dropping out. And each year in Austin Independent School District alone, we have over 2,000 children who drop out of school. Each year in Austin and Travis County, we have between 12 and 1,300 babies born to teen parents. And if we look at that at any one point in time, we have between 3,000 and 4,000 teen parents in our community. And these, for the most part, are young families or individuals within families that are in great need of services. And then we look back to see what have we done as a community in terms of adding social services, or just the amount of resources we put into social services. And the city and the county budgets for social services have remained static in the past 3 and 4 years.
Well, then what can churches, synagogues, people in the religious community do to, this is a good chance to plug, and you can pass the plate now if you need to, all of that. But what can we do to help in your work? How to become involved?
I'm really perplexed that in the work that we do in reaching out to various groups in the community, that we don't have significant representation from the religious community. We do seminars, we establish networks, we recruit for volunteers, but we just do not get representatives from the church, from the religious community directly, that says, I'm coming as a representative of this church or this group because I'm concerned about this problem. We do find that from education. We certainly find it from social services and from some other corporations, from businesses, in terms of contributions, money. But we don't get that from the churches. And we truly, in our agency, have tried to look at ways of recruiting directly volunteers and members of our network and participants in our seminars to represent this community. And I don't quite understand that. And I am concerned about it.
I don't either, but our listeners just heard that, so maybe that'll provoke something. Don, what can we do to help communities and schools?
I certainly want to amen what Jackie just said, because it is perplexing, and one would think that the churches would be on the forefront of being involved. One thing that your population could do is volunteer.
Definitely.
One thing that we have found is very successful. Remember, I was telling you I was going to tell you the good news.
Yes.
Is that in our work, we have, of the kids that we work with, we have a track record of 95% retention. In other words, the kids that we began working with, there was a study just completed several years back, a 2-year study that showed that of the kids we work with over that period of time, 95% of them were either still in school or had graduated. And we still have that level of effectiveness, and the secret is very, very simple. And the secret is that we pair a caring adult with a kid, with a young person, and that reaching out, that human concern from that caring adult is one of the primary factors in helping that young person stay in school. And no telling other positives that we don't even see
Yeah.
We measure our effectiveness by whether or not we have kept that young person in school, that we know, had we not been involved, would more than likely drop out. Of course, like any other prevention program, you never know for sure what you have done because you don't see that,
Sure.
that result. But we do know that the kids we work with stay in school, so we are always looking for those caring adults to volunteer in our program, and so we can match them with young people as mainly as tutors. But as they tutor them and help them with their schoolwork, they're getting to know them. That young person feels that caring and that time that is spent with him or her, and it pays off. So that's a big one right there. And of course, money is always strapped for funds in our agency. So of course, money.
I was going to say, it's safe to say that you need money, but you also need some hands-on caring, some people who will kind of pick up the banner and go for it. We have a couple of minutes here left, and I'm going to give you a chance to say, if you can, what your heart's desire is for the youth who are at risk here in Austin. Do you want to start for us, Jackie?
Well, my heart's desire or wish would be that we show that we are a caring community and that we recognize that our youth are at risk and that we do need to fine-tune the services that we offer in our community. We do need to recognize that really the health of our total community rests upon the health of our youth, and there are some real significant signs that the health of our community, our youth of our community, is not what we would like it to be.
And Don?
Well put. I can't even really add to that, but I can say that our priorities in our community really do need to be with the most precious of our resource, which is our youth. And that gets operationalized behaviorally as to the whole range of services that are available to kids and conditions that exist for families and the education that we provide for our kids and the whole general well-being and health of our community, because growing up in that kind of an environment will produce good, solid community.
Well, we're out of time, which I knew we would get to this point and want more time. These are problems we cannot ignore. The quality of our community's future depends on the education we provide today. The Teenage Parent Council and communities and schools are two ways we're trying to support our youth here in the Austin area. On behalf of Austin Metropolitan Ministries, I'm Valerie Bridgman Davis, thanking our guests Jackie Lytle and Don Loving for their input, and thanking you for joining us. Please join us again next week here on Austin Faith Dialogue. Peace.